I hadn't seen my ex-husband's brother in years when he showed up at my doorstep. I expected a short, polite visit, but the way he looked at me, both familiar and unfamiliar, unsettled me. I tried to manage the tension, but something had shifted, and by the end of the afternoon, I realized this wasn't just a casual drop-in. It marked the start of something I never could have anticipated. 6 years had passed since the divorce, a lifetime, really. Yet sometimes it felt like it was only yesterday. The pain had faded like an old scar, but it lingered quietly, resurfacing whenever I saw couples in the park or heard laughter from behind closed windows. I never imagined I'd be alone in my 40s, but there I was, piecing my life back together from the fragments he left behind. That Friday began like any other. I was pouring a second cup of coffee when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment, I wondered if I'd forgotten a meeting, but when I opened the door, I froze. It was David, my ex-husband's younger brother. He looked older, more mature, his youthful charm now tempered with a quiet strength, a new depth. His smile was tentative, as if he wasn't sure he'd made the right choice by coming. "Hi, Claire," he said, his voice soft, almost practiced. "David," I replied, caught between surprise and confusion. "What are you doing here?" He rubbed the back of his neck, that nervous habit he'd had since college. "I was in town and thought, I'd like to see you, just to talk." Part of me wanted to say no, to gently close the door and return to my quiet routine, but loneliness had carved a deep hollow in me, and I hadn't spoken to anyone outside of work all week. Finally, I stepped aside. He entered cautiously, as if stepping into a sacred space or a memory. The house had changed since his last visit. I'd painted the walls, replaced the furniture, tried to erase the shadows of the past. But he looked around with a quiet familiarity, as if the walls still whispered the stories he remembered. We sat in the living room, and I offered him coffee. He nodded, a nostalgic smile tugging at his lips. "Still with too much cream and a dash of cinnamon," I laughed despite myself. "Some things don't change." "And others do," he said softly. The silence that followed stretched too long. My heart raced, not from attraction, not yet, but from something stirring. The kind of tension you feel when the past collides with the present. "I heard about you and Mark," he said at last, referring to his brother. "I never told you I'm sorry." I stared at my coffee cup. It was a conversation I'd known was coming. "I always thought he was hard on you, but I never said anything. I didn't think it was my place." "It wasn't," I replied, though my voice lacked conviction. I'd long wished anyone had spoken up. We talked about small things, memories, like the time he and Mark got drunk and locked themselves out of the house, or when he borrowed my books and returned them with notes scribbled in the margins. I was surprised at how easy it was to talk to him, like slipping into an old sweater that still fit perfectly. Then he asked, "Are you seeing anyone?" The question caught me off guard. "No, actually," I said. He pressed gently, not interested. "Not really," I answered. The silence that followed was different, not awkward, but charged, as if something had been said without words. He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes tracing my face, and suddenly I was hyper-aware of myself. The lines etched by years, the softness of my body, the way my sweater hugged my frame. I wasn't 25 anymore, but I wasn't ashamed. "You look good, Claire," he said quietly. "Really?" I swallowed, feeling warmth creep up my neck. I hadn't heard those words in ages. "You don't have to say that." "I want to," he replied. There was something in his voice, honest, steady, and in that moment I remembered who he'd been to me once. Not just Mark's brother, but the one who made me laugh at family gatherings, the one who truly saw me. "I don't know why I came today," he admitted, standing slowly. "Maybe just to see if the past still means something." I stood too, unsure of what to say. The air between us was heavy, filled with unnamed emotions. "David, this is complicated." "I know," he said. I missed you." I met his gaze, and he wasn't my ex-brother-in-law anymore. I saw a man who'd always been there in the background, waiting for his moment. Something inside me whispered that maybe this was it. I noticed him step closer. The dim kitchen light softened his features, as if the universe had paused to highlight what was about to unfold. He leaned against the counter, holding a cold mug of tea. His gaze was intense, direct, carrying something that didn't need words. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen. "I never wanted to cause you trouble," he whispered, his voice rough. "But I can't pretend anymore. I've held this in for years, and being near you again, it's overwhelming." His words, raw and trembling, pierced me. "I watched you all those years," he continued. "You held the family together, laughed with everyone, and cried alone at night. I saw it all, and I never said anything." He took another step closer, and I caught the scent of his cologne, woody, clean, masculine, familiar yet forbidden. "You shouldn't say these things," I murmured. "You're his brother." "And he was my brother before he was your husband," he said. "But he never deserved you, and he still doesn't." His words shook me. Part of me felt guilty, but another part, long dormant, yearning, embraced his confession. The emotional void I'd endured for years suddenly felt unjust. "Do you remember the time you made pumpkin soup?" he asked with a wistful smile. "It was Thanksgiving. He stepped out to take a call, and you and I were in the kitchen. You burned your hand on the pot." I nodded, surprised by how vivid the memory was. "I wanted to take your hand, just to ease the pain, but you looked at me like you were trying to be strong. I saw everything, and I hated myself for staying silent." My heart pounded. That memory was buried but not forgotten. I thought it was just my imagination, reading too much into a kind glance, but hearing him say it now validated everything I'd felt. "That was years ago, David. Everything's different now." He brushed my wrist with his fingertips, just a touch, but it sparked like fire on my skin. "Is it?" he asked. "I remember what matters." We stood there, silent, the space between us humming with unspoken feelings and the fear of crossing an irreversible line. "I don't know what you want from me," I said, my voice trembling. "I don't want anything you're not ready to give," he replied. "I just want you to know someone saw you, valued how you held that home together, how you smiled even when you were breaking. You deserve to be loved the way you deserve. I don't know if I'm that person, but I want a chance." I turned away, gripping the counter, eyes brimming with tears I refused to let fall. I'd cried too much for the wrong reasons. This moment, whatever it was, deserved clarity. He stepped closer but didn't touch me. "Are you afraid?" he asked. "I'm confused," I admitted. "I won't push you," he said. "Just don't shut me out." I turned to face him. His closeness wasn't threatening, it was patient, as if he knew I needed to find my own answers. "I've spent years building walls," I whispered. "I'm not asking you to tear them down," he said. "Just let me stand on the other side. Maybe one day you'll let me in." Something inside me cracked, but not from pain. It was like releasing a breath I'd held for years. "One day," I said. He smiled, not kissing me. Instead, he rested his forehead against mine. It was more intimate than a kiss. It was real. "Thank you," he said, and the moment ended. But the air between us had changed forever. Later, as he prepared to leave, I handed him his coat. Our hands brushed, and this time I didn't pull away. "Dinner tomorrow?" he asked. I hesitated, then smiled. "Dinner sounds good." He nodded and stepped out into the night. For the first time in years, the silence he left behind didn't feel empty. It felt alive with possibilities. That night, I couldn't sleep. David's words echoed in my mind like a song I couldn't turn off. It wasn't just about him. It was about me. For how long had I lived pretending I was okay, denying myself affection, comfort, connection? I'd lost myself in duty, pride, and appearances. And with one visit, David had reawakened a version of me I thought was gone. The next morning, I washed a clean mug just to keep my hands busy. Outside, the sun lit up the yard I used to tend with care. I thought of the first time I met David, young, full of laughter. Back then, he was just my boyfriend's brother, always respectful but never distant. I thought of my ex-husband, of what we had, yes, but also what we didn't. Real love, patient, tender, we hadn't shared that. Worse, I'd convinced myself I didn't need it. That marriage was about endurance, not tenderness. But David reminded me I deserved to be seen, heard, cherished. I felt guilty, yes, for the past, for the family, for the woman I'd been taught to be. But was it so wrong to let these feelings exist, even quietly? That night, I cooked something simple, telling myself it wasn't for him. But it was. There was a spark in me I hadn't felt in years. When David arrived, with a bottle of wine and that same warm smile, the air between us felt different. Over dinner, we talked about music, childhood, places we wanted to visit. I laughed in a way I hadn't in ages. He looked at me like he'd been waiting years to hear that laugh. Then silence returned, not awkward, but full. "This is complicated," he said finally. "Yes," I agreed, "but I want you to know something. Even if nothing comes of this, even if this is just a moment, I'm grateful. You reminded me what it feels like to care for someone." His words hit me like a wave, not poetry, but truth. "And you reminded me I'm still a woman," I whispered, not meeting his eyes. "Not just a mother, not just an ex-wife, I'd almost forgotten her." He took my hand gently, his touch firm but not demanding. I didn't pull away. "You don't have to do anything," he said. "Just stop hiding from yourself." Those words stayed with me as I brushed my hair in front of the mirror. For the first time, I didn't search for flaws. I saw a woman who'd survived, who'd loved, who'd given everything without asking for anything. I saw strength, but also tenderness. A tenderness I'd buried to survive. And I finally let myself ask, what if I deserve more? Maybe this wasn't betrayal, but a path to healing. That night, I didn't run from my emotions. I let them flow. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was waking up. At dawn, with sunlight streaming through the window, I knew something inside me had changed forever.